everybody, and how are we all doing? I'm reminding myself how to do this show once again. First off, let me apologise for not being able to do a show last Sunday. As I said, if you saw the message, I got a migraine. I kind of think I know where it came from. I was on call on Thursday night, got called out, got back home nearly midnight, I think it was. And then I was up at 5 o'clock to go to Gardener's World for 2 days. Busy, busy, busy. Drove back Saturday night, Sunday morning, woke up with a headache. Did go see my dad, but I came back and went back to bed and basically slept all afternoon and just realised I couldn't do a show. So I apologise wholeheartedly for that, but hopefully tonight we will make up for it. Now, tonight we are going to be talking about the subject we should have talked about last week, which is what are your watering methods? This is something I think we don't really discuss that much, but it is a subject that does need discussion. This year we've had a lot of water, of course, a lot of rain. But the last few days, we have had quite a nice bit of sunshine. And I think it is important to remember that although the soil might be moist, once you get down, the top level can be dry. And if you've got young seedlings, they do need a watering. Not only that, if the sun stays for a bit longer, it's soon going to dry out the soil as well. So before we get into that, let's find out if we've got anybody in the chat. And straight away, Adrian is there saying hello, Richard and all. There's Jenny Wren in the garden is on over Instagram. Hello, Jenny. Ballysillian Allotment Man. So good evening all. Hope you're fully recovered, Richard. Yeah. Took a couple of days, but I am fully recovered now. Thank you. Philly, hello, everyone. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for your photo. Stuart Jackson is there. Evening, Richard and the Veg Army. Hope we are all well. Not much gardening done this week as I was away with school and needed to catch up on sleep. I bet you did. You have my sympathies there. Excuse me. Kate Spratt is there. Good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. We've got a lot of chefs saying evening all. Good evening to you. Anna Jones is there saying good evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. Gary is there saying hi all. Not logged on for a while. Nice to see you all. Nice to see you too. Turbo Stream says good evening, Veg podcasters. A tad warm today, wasn't it? Just I had to take my t-shirt off. It was getting so warm. We've got Rebecca saying, nice to see you back, Richard. Hope you're feeling better. Thank you so much. We've got Gary A.M. Arnold. Evening, everyone. Hope you're all enjoying the sunshine. Kate says, has it started? I'm not getting anything on here at my end. I have started. Hopefully, I'm not talking to myself. Can anybody hear me or anything? Over on Instagram, Jenny says, hello, everyone. I hope you are well and hope you are feeling better, Richard. Much better. Thank you very much. Skinny Jean Garner says, yay, he is back. Indeed, I am. And he goes on to say, too hot. And View from a Lake says, hope you're better, Richard. Much better. Thank you very much. Just had one of those horrible migraines that really does take it out of me. Kate says that's okay now, and Toby Stream all okay here in Birmingham. And Nicola, evening all. Just our friends will tune in shortly after I've left. And Seed to Table Plot 13, aka Scott, has joined. Evening all. Good evening to you. So let's get into it, shall we? Watering, as I said in the opening lines, watering is one of those things that I think we take for granted. It's certainly something that I think we should give a bit more attention to. I personally, I've got several watering methods that I use, but my first and I think the biggest important rule that I come with is to try and collect as much rainwater as possible to the point that I can only use rainwater here at home. I have, how many now is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 water butts in my garden here at home, all of which get filled up with water that we then use. Now, to use the water from those, I mostly stick with a watering can. I'm not a lover of hose pipes. Hose pipes do have a use, of course, but I'm not a lover of them. I much sooner use a watering can. I feel it's more direct and just much better overall. Plus, we get to use rainwater. Now, I do have a little hose lock water butt pump that I do actually use rainwater for things like my veggie pod. It just pumps water with a nice bit of pressure to really get those sprayers working in the veggie pod. It works quite well once it is all set up, and we're working around with a few systems on that. And just have a quick look on Instagram, see what's going on. Jenny Wren says, funnily enough, I'm listening while I'm out watering, and she says, I have one water butt at home on the porch roof. Unfortunately, the neighbour has the downpipe for both houses. You'll be surprised just how much water you can collect just by leaving a water butt without a top on. So it's well worth just doing that. Chili Kate has joined, says hi everyone. Turbo Stream says, I'm surprised how dry my soil is now. There is moisture deeper down, but the top couple of inches are quite dry. Now that's a very good point actually. And it's something that I have noticed as well. Top centimetre, shall we say, which when you're planting out new plants or new seeds, that top layer can be quite important to keep moist. But although we've had a lot of rain, we've had a lot of wind lately, and I'm finding that is what's causing the top of the soil to dry out. But we can make the most out of it. Bedo says hello all, good evening to you. Richard Golding says hello all, good evening to you. Hope you are well. Turbo Stream says watering cans only on the allotment, so no other way to water than that. Yep, same on my allotment. We can't use water pipes. We've got dipping tanks. Should say because we've got restrictions on the amount of water butts on the allotment, I have to use the mains water on the allotment. I would much prefer to use water butts though. Annie Jones says the top is dry in my garden, but underneath is still soaking. It's good, isn't it, when that happens? But that is just a case of it needs less watering when it's like that. It's just trying to keep, that top centimetre dry, moist, sorry. And says, is your camera dirty? It looks blurred. It looks perfect on my screen here. I don't think it is dirty, but I could be wrong. I've been fiddling around with settings today, trying to find out, because I was getting an overexposed look, and I was hoping to got rid of that, but I can't see what you're seeing. On my screen, it looks absolutely fine. Turbo Stream says, I only water the young plants. Once they are established, they fend for themselves unless it's really dry for a prolonged period. That's actually a very, very good point. One of the mistakes that many of us gardeners do make is that we water on a daily basis to try and make sure our soil stays moist. But what that does encourage is when you plant out a plant, it encourages the plant roots to stay up near the top. And really, we want the roots to go further down where there's more moisture so they can look after themselves. So what I tend to do, when I plant out my plants, I will water them daily to get them established. And then I will go every other day and then at least once a week. If it's really, really dry for a long period, we might give it a good soaking. But I really don't want to water too much. I want to allow those roots to go in search of water by going further down. And what that also does, a plant with bigger, stronger roots also produces a bigger, better plant. So I do think, watering every day has its limitations. I don't think it is very good. The only thing I would say is you do get much lusher growth on your plants, but you don't necessarily want a lot of lush growth unless you are, when you're growing vegetables anyway, you want vegetables as your main concern. Seed to Table Plot 13 says, the older people on my allotment site tell me not to water things like pumpkin and squash, so the roots go deep to find the water, and they normally produce better fruits, so maybe they have a point. Now, I'm going to say that does depend. One of the things that I know that champion the people who grow the really, really big pumpkins, they will water daily, and they will do something like 10 gallons of water on a daily basis. So, again, it comes back to what you're trying to do. If you want to grow the really, really, really big pumpkins, then you probably do need to water daily. For me, I'm trying to grow food, so I want those strong roots, and I only want to get a couple of decent sized edible pumpkins that taste good. It's all about the taste for me. But added to that, I also often grow squashes and things like that in my compost heaps. And because that's quite a drain or quite a bit of drainage, they do need a bit of water, which also encourages you to water your compost bin from time to time as well. Skinny Jean says over on Instagram, I've run out of water in my water butts. I'm panicking. Yeah, you need a bit. I think it's due to rain on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. Saying that, Anne has said Anne is having torrential rain today after really hot weather over in Canada. That's exciting, isn't it? She goes on to say, I can stop watering for once. For us, this is the first time we've really watered this year. It's been a very wet season. Digwell says, a bit late for a reason related to this week's topic. Expanding hose ran through my house to water the front beds. Hose burst, very wet house. 5 bath towels later, the carpet is just damp, not happy. Yeah. I mean, as you know, I'm not a fan of hose pipes. One thing I'm trialing out this year on that matter, luckily, these are from a company, I think it's Quick Hose, if I remember correctly. Just trying to, yeah, quickhose.co.uk. And this is connecting 2 hose pipes to each other, basically. Now, most of us know that most of the hose pipes, you unscrew that end, you stick it in, I've dropped it, and you screw it over and it clamps around it. What makes hose lock a bit different is this. You put your hose over that bit there, and then that grabs around the hose and squeezes it on, and it's held into place by that. I think that I'm going to be trialing it, but I think that should have much more chance of not blowing off with one of those. I think that to me makes a lot more sense. If anybody's tried one, let us know. Sam Extreme says only water every few days only ever water every few days the young plants. I don't go every day, 3 to 4 visits a week. Not been since Friday, and then I didn't water anything. We'll go and water tomorrow though. Fair enough. I mean, you don't have to water every day. I could go to my allotment every day except usually Sundays, but that's because I do it on my way home from work. Chalmers Farm Flowers has joined over on Instagram. Hello and welcome. Ian says, hi Richard and all. I'm feeling very lucky as my sweet potato plant is grown well in the greenhouse. I've just brought some orange and yellow cauliflowers. Fantastic. Love to see how you get on with your sweet potato this year. Stuart says, I have 3 water butts and about 6 watering cans, so I only use a hose if I have to. But I do have a veggie pod and another plastic raised bed, which has its own watering system. Do you use, on the veggie pod, I've got 3 veggie pods, as you know. Do you use a hose pipe on that or water butts? Digwell says, no choice but to use a hose, either that or carry 50 watering cans through the house. This is the downside. This is the downside of watering cans. It does involve a lot of toing and throwing. What I do, most of my gardening is out the back, but I do have the front garden, as you know. And out the front, I actually have installed a water butt, and I leave a watering can out the front. So when I am watering my plants out the front, I don't have very far to go at all. And I just simply leave, everything's there to hand. It takes me no time. I pretty much water that front garden as I go to work every day, if that makes sense. I only do certain bits every few days. I need that. Is it expensive, Richard? I'll be honest, I don't know how much these are. But quickhose.co.uk, I don't think they're that expensive. I personally think they're just much better design of clamping around. In my opinion, I've yet to try it. That was the only thing I would say. Nathan says, looking into getting an irrigation system next year for the greenhouse. Well, I have got irrigation systems to talk about a little bit later on, funnily enough, especially with some changes I'm looking to make on my greenhouse. Stuart says, hose pipe on the veggie pod as my water butt is too far away. Fair enough. Fair enough. As I said, I've just updated mine to use a water pump to do my veggie pods out of my water butts because I just want to save or um, try and use rainwater as much as possible. Over on Facebook, Instagram, sorry, Skinny Jean says, same with water bar out the front. It's a game changer. It really is. It just, it just makes life so much easier having the water where you need it. As Digwell can testify, having to carry a hose pipe through the house can lead to a lot of problems. Sometimes you have no choice, of course, but it happened. Water bar out the front makes life easier. Hi, Grave Gas. Evening all. Sorry I'm late. Still in the greenhouse. Lost track of time. I think because I wasn't live last week, it's kind of ruined routine a bit, didn't it, as well? Thank you for joining us. Lovely to see you. Anne says, is the new blue hose connector also a deterrent to stop idiots removing hose connectors? Bane of my life. I don't know on that front. I don't know. It might be. It might work. I mean, this is for connecting two hose pipes to each other. They do different variations. They pretty much have got everything you could think of. But I would say look into it, and if you are looking at these, I mean, I think they're a great idea, and I will test them. They're going to be on the podcast at some point as well. But I think they're a great idea. But they do. They seem to work quite well, is all I would say. I've seen them a lot at shows, and I've always avoided them because I just thought they're hosepipe connectors. It wasn't until I actually got to meet them at a Glee last year that I actually realised they're pretty damn good. Kate says, I use a hose most of the time. Now I only have the one garden. I use a watering can where I'm using a feed, though. It's harder to carry them these days, unfortunately. So Kate does fall into the hosepipe realm, which is absolutely fine. As I said, got no problem with using a hosepipe. I have found this water butt pump that I use, the pressure that we actually get from it is equivalent to what you would get from mains water. So I think it is pretty damn good. £13 for the join us, says Digwell. Fantastic, fantastic. I don't think that's too bad. Turbo Extreme says, I gained a water butt, so I'm deciding where and how to position it. Probably needs a new tap. Get the tap in before you position it, is my top advice. Stuart says, I do have a self-watering system in the greenhouse. Big bag of water hanging up with the drip feed onto the trays under the pots, etc. So that's like a drip feeding system, isn't it? Drip watering system where you hang the bag up and drop it down. And yeah, I know what you're talking about. Excellent stuff. Turbo Extreme says, any tips on installing a new water butt, new tap to a water butt when you are on your own? Yeah, very, very long spanner on the inside is my advice. Or try and get a long pair of pliers or something. I don't know. I've got quite a long arms. You can't even see it. My arms are quite long, so I can reach down to the bottom of a hose water butt and do them both up quite well. Sorry, £12.99. I don't know if they sell them in Canada, but I'd urge look at them if they do. Stuart says, but I'm very lucky I don't have a water meter, so I don't need to worry about the water bill. Fantastic, fantastic. So moving on from that, something that I have set up a couple of months ago, and I brought this from Gardener's World Spring Fair, is the Allotment. I've set that up in just one of my small beds. It was a medium Allotment. It cost me £20. Now, if you don't know what an Allotment is, it's basically a terracotta pot. You sink it in the ground, you fill it up with water, and because it's unglazed, that water just slowly seeps out and feeds and waters all the plants that might be around it. Now, I was a bit skeptical about this. I believe it's a very ancient system of watering. I'm not sure who created it, but I saw it on a little video. I thought it sounded like a good idea, but I almost thought it could be too good to be true. But I bought one of these, £20. I've got to admit, if I see him again, I will be buying at least one more because it has worked so well. I've put it into one of my small beds, probably better in a pot or something, but I put it into one of my small beds It's got 4 tomato plants and a few nasturtium plants. I've used this. If you don't know what this, or if you look at the thumbnail for this live stream, you will see it in that picture. I've it it is all I have ever done with that bed is filled up the Allotment. I haven't had to do any extra watering. The tomato plants are growing away really, really happily. We do have a straw mulch, but the soil does seem to stay very, very moist. So it is working incredibly, incredibly well. I'm genuinely very, very happy with this sort of system. It's definitely something I'm going to look at a lot more in the future. What I like about it, about once a month, I just fill up, once a week, sorry, I just fill up, it's about 1.5 litres of water, just fill up that Ola pot, and I forget about it until the following week. And that's all I have to do. There's often still a bit of water in that Ola pot, but it is just so simple, so simple, but works. Now, if we were doing it on a much bigger scale, you would need bigger Ola pots. And I would also sort of say, if you've got a big bed, you would probably need several Ola pots to try and spread the water out evenly. Now, if you do want to experiment with this or try this out, Digwell does say you can make your own Allotment. You just need 2 terracotta plant pots. Just seal the hole in one of them and then glue the 2 tops together with sealant and fill via the hole on the top. So you could make your own if you are interested in that, and you can. It's probably much cheaper thinking about it. With a decent sealant, it should work very, very well. In fact, I might have to give that a try and make our own. Thank you very much, Digwell. Great thinking there. Nothing I can see going on over on Instagram. But yeah, the Allotment for me has been a bit of a game changer. It really does make life easy. Now, watering, I know, is not a job that takes up a huge amount of time. But it's a necessary job. And I like it when I can just do it and forget about it and move on. That's kind of how I like to think of watering. To water my garden or my allotment properly would take over an hour on each one. It's a lot of time eaten up with something that is mundane and fairly simple. So, but trying to make this automatic so I don't have to do it just makes my life easier. As I said, I don't water every day, but if I did, spending an hour in each garden watering, that's 2 hours out of my day. I don't have a huge amount of time like many of us. Allotment and other systems like that just seem to make a lot of sense. We do, of course, have in my greenhouse, I've got a solar irrigation system, which I've got to admit, it works well. It's done quite well. Oh, in the first year it did quite well, but recently it doesn't seem to be doing as good a job. So I'm a little disappointed with that. It still pumps water. It just seems to get blocked up quite quickly, even though we've got filters and things like that. So I might take that out of there at some point and pop that outside and see if it does any better. But this is simply a solar powered pump. Every 3 hours, it just kicks in and pumps water out of the drip feeders and waters up. I've got a bigger one in the shed as well, actually, that I've yet to use. Now, out the front of the garden, it would probably actually be ideal. Now, as I said, I do a lot when I go out the front of the garden and just water. Just water. Let me get my words out. At the front of the garden, I tend to water when I go to work. But again, out the front garden, where I've got lots of pots, all my things are growing in pots out there, it will probably work really, really well out there. So perhaps we have to think about moving it to out the front of the garden to water my pots. Now, Stuart Jackson says, I've done your idea. It works very well and a lot cheaper. I've seen it online, and as you know, I don't like spending money, which I kind of agree with. Turbo Extremes, when I do water, I try and make sure they get a decent soaking. This is kind of my point. I said earlier that it takes me an hour to water my garden properly. This is with watering cans, probably quicker when we use a hose pipe. But the key thing there is to get a decent soak in. Splashing a bit of water around your soil doesn't necessarily do it. And what I tend to try and do to try and learn just how much you need to water is dig down. We've spoken earlier, a few people commented that the top sort of centimetre or two of their soil at the moment is dry. And when you dig down, I went, and you'll see in the soil along actually, about 2 centimetres down was where the moisture was, which was very, very important. So you've got when you water, you want that water to really soak into the ground and go right down. I have done it where I haven't watered well enough, given it a splash of water, dug down, and you've got the top bit is wet, but then you get this dry dust before you hit the wet soil again. So it is worth sometimes after watering just scraping away at the soil, just seeing how far down it gets wet. Turbo Stream says, surprised at how fast a 200-litre water butt runs out of water. One reason I'm not watering every day. Yeah, 200-litre water butt, that would be, if I watered daily, that would last less than a week. But as I said, we don't need to water daily in many cases. We do need to make sure we give everything a good soaking. Yeah. Now, the final thing I've got about a watering system that I'm using, which is also working very, very well. I've been sent this to trial out. It's from Autopot, autopot.co.uk. Now, I know Digwell has some of these as well. And what they are, basically, they've got a water reservoir where it pipes into a tray or with pots in it. It's got this valve that opens and closes when the water level in that tray drops. It's like a flood and drain system. No electricity. It's all done by gravity. And I've got to admit, I'm very, very impressed with it. I do have, if you are interested, a discount code for that. Let's bring that up. 10% off, plus I do actually get 10%, but I'm not really interested in that. But I'm just being honest with you guys. I'm not interested in earning anything from it. But what I found is that, again, I filled it up with water, added the fertilizer. I've forgotten. I've hardly had to do anything with the tomatoes I've planted in it. And then my mum actually brought me the tray system, which I'm using for my seedlings. And this is basically a tray using the same sort of thing. Pop seedlings trays in on top, and they seem to grow very, very well. The good thing is you can also extend on these and add them. And again, since I've set them up, I've only had to fill them up with the water on the time that I set them up. Now, just going over to Instagram. Skinny Jeans says, I like that idea, talking about the Allotment. And he goes on and says, watering is calming for me. I love it. That's fair enough. As I said, I quite enjoy watering. I also quite enjoy lawn mowing, but it's one of those jobs I want to try and make my life a little bit easier. Yeah. Jenny also says, I do like the opportunity to health check my plants when watering. Good point. Very good point. And Skinny Jeans says, mulch, mulch, mulch. That is next on my list, funnily enough. Mulch, mulch, mulch. And also nappies. I think he's talking about the putting nappies in pots to soak up some of that water. That's what's going on over here. We've got Digwell says, then any push fit valves can be fitted. What's that? Oh, talking about the other pot, are you? Could be wrong. Digwell says, Autopot easy to grow system. I use it for my chilies and very good. Yeah, that's what I've got as well. I'm doing tomatoes in mine, which might be a bit of a mistake, but I think chilies and peppers would be better. Toby Strom says, I've recently rejigged my butts, so they are quite empty now. We do have taps on our allotment, but we can't refill the butts from the tap. Excellent above. Excellent. Stuart says, what upsets me is the people who water the grass. I feel the Lord will always come back once it starts raining. Save water for food. So I agree with this. I do completely agree with this. I don't water my lawn at all. I don't see the point of it. It does look better when it looks green, is my only comment on that. But what I would say, um, is that grey water, so washing up water, bath water, I would use that. I would not use either of those on my edibles when it comes to water conservation, unless I really, really had no choice. But I would use those on ornamentals, including the grass. And I think rather than letting that bath water go down the sewers, it would be much better out on the lawn. I personally think that would be a much better way. Um, Read the comment above first, Richard. Autopot easy grow. I use it for my chilies. Very good. Then I'm confused. Confused did well with that. I'm confused. You've confused me. Yeah, we it was mentioned mulch as well. Straw as I've used as a mulch, which was a big mistake. I've only got it on a couple of beds now, but the big mistake was the fact that it held on to so many of the slugs and snails. Big mistake. So I got I got rid of a straw. But compost, grass clippings are definite great mulches that I use a lot of. I just simply lay them over the soil. It shades it out, stops it from drying out, works absolute wonders. And to me, it is the biggest game changer for gardening is just to mulch everything. Mulch, mulch, and mulch. I was also going to say, with my pots and things like that, I like to add biochar or perlite or vermiculite, which have a bit of a sponge effect in the soil. They hold on to moisture and nutrients when they are added as well. So I think, thinking about this a bit like the nappies, hanging baskets and everything like that, they benefit with biochar or perlite added to it. Digwell says higher, higher, higher. What have we got? Make your own honor pot. Is that what you were talking about? 2 terracotta pots, seal the hole, glue the tops together with sealant, fill via remaining hole. Then any push valve can be fitted. Is that what you're saying, Digwell? I'm a bit confused. Either that or the comment hasn't came through here. But I could be wrong. I could be. Yeah. Digwell, you have been watching Play Your Cards Right. I'm higher, higher, higher. Gotcha. Higher, higher. It happens, doesn't it? So I tell you what, let's wait and see what Digwell has, because I think I'm missing something there. While we wait for that to come through, I'm going to play this week's Sew Along, which from 2 weeks ago, you remember, was the French beans. Right, guys. I know I said this 2 weeks ago, the Sew Along was going to be some French beans, and that's what we're going to do. They're a dwarf French bean that I'm growing, so they're not going to need any support. They're going in this bed, which I have peas growing in here, and I've mulched with this stuff from Rocket Grow. So far, so good. But let's get these dwarf French beans in the ground. Right, first things first, label goes in, and then all I'm going to do with my hoe, just make a drill about 2 centimetres deep ideally. It probably could be straighter, but we won't worry about that. That'll do. As I can see, now I'm getting down to the level, I can see there's plenty of moisture down there. Then we're just going to take the seeds. These are the seeds. This is a yellow variety of dwarf bean. And because they're dwarf, they're not going to need any support, and we can pack them in fairly close. I've grown these before with quite a bit of success. Now this is 1.2 metre wide, and I've fitted about 10 seeds in there, so that should be plenty. And then all we're going to do, backfill them like so, and leave these to grow. Now I'm going to add a bit more of the mulch down to this as well, just to cover it over a little bit more and hold on to plenty of that moisture. We will have to water this, of course. Moisture not being too much of a problem this year, but we want it to remain moist and grow some decent French beans. Now within a couple of weeks I expect those to germinate. We will leave them to grow. Somebody at our front door. and then we will wait until they produce beans and harvest them. In terms of feeding, generally speaking, I don't find beans need a huge amount of feed. This bed has got plenty of compost added to it, and this mulch will also add to it as well. If we do need to add anything, it might be a tomato feed when they start to flower, but overall not a huge amount. And then we'll just pick up the French beans, harvest the French beans when they are ready, and enjoy them. Won't need any support, nothing like that. And then when they're finished, we just simply cut the plant off at the root base, leaving the roots in the ground, and then that will put nitrogen into the soil, which would be great for the next crop, which is going to be onions and things like that. So there we go. That's this one. That's the French beans sown. Back to the studio. Indeed, back to the studio. So, yeah, fantastic. That's French beans. Still time. If you are running out or looking for things to sow or plant, French beans can still be planted, especially the dwarfing varieties. Now, Digwell was speaking, says how to fit a tap to a water butt. I can't see your comment anywhere about fitting a tap to a water butt, Digwell. I even went onto YouTube on my phone to see while that video was playing. Can't see it anywhere. So could you repeat it, please? Sorry to be a pain. Digwell says, makes me laugh when people will not use their own bath water for the veg, but more than happy to slap horse and chicken poo everywhere. I know what you're getting at there, and I don't disagree with you there. However, what I would say is horse and chicken poo is well rotted down. Bath water is literally out the bath and straight onto it. But my also stance is I would much rather save my rainwater for the veg and use the bath water for lawn or flowers or anything like that that I'm not going to eat. That's my stance on it, and it could be you know, it could be wrong. I agree, but I'd sooner save rainwater for my veg and use grey water for anything else, including flushing the toilet for that matter as well, because I think that's an important use to think about too. Benno says it's a debt collector, pretend you're not home. Yeah, we all know who that's actually calling for, don't we? Digwell says, then any push valve can be fitted. I think, are you putting something that keeps getting dodged out or something? Because I cannot see the comment in between. I've got Beddoes with the debt collector and then you here. I think you're writing something that YouTube is saying that word is not applicable. Perhaps it's but. No, it can't be but because we're all using it. I don't know. There's obviously a comment missing somewhere that I can't see. And now, has anybody got any methods that they want to share that has worked well for them, other than what we've discussed? I'd love to hear if anybody's got anything similar or different that they would like to throw out, or making your own irrigation systems as well, because I think that always goes down well too. You know, I'm thinking off the top of my head, I've heard of wicking systems and things like that. In fact, I made a wicking system for my greenhouse down on the allotment, based primarily on the veggie pot design, and I kind of do this with all my pots now. Instead of having the drainage holes on the bottom, I have about an inch up on the side, put some perlite in the bottom, and then compost and up to that. And that creates a well at the bottom, which wicks up through the soil, which is the basis of how the veggie pod works, of course. But not only that, my pots in the greenhouse down on the allotment, because the greenhouse on the allotment gets very hot. I can't get down there twice a day to open and close the door. I sort of work in a way that seems to work quite well, and I don't need to water those pots every day. I've gone for square plastic containers down on there. They're 75 litre, I think, but reuse the compost on them. And because of that, those tomatoes, the cucumbers, and everything growing down there grows really, really well with minimal effort because it's just holding on to that water like a well, basically, at the bottom of the pot. Chili Cake says, I met a really fascinating chap at our village greening event last weekend. Water from his trout tank filters through his fruit and veg bed and eventually back into the tank. It was really interesting. Um, is that aquaponics, slightly different from hydroponics, where you're using fish? I know a lot of the sort of prepper people talk about this, where they would use big IBC tanks that would have tilapia, maybe trout, in one tank, and then the nutrients from all the fish poop and everything helps feed the plants that are growing in the other tank hydroponically. I think that's the system you're sort of talking about. It's something I'd like the idea of. I have really liked the idea of. Don't have the space to do it here, and I'd sooner grow in the ground, if I'm honest with you. I think hydroponics, aquaponics has some great benefits, but I think the flavour can sometimes be lacking as well. Check on Instagram. Nothing going on over on Instagram at the moment. Oh, is there? Sometimes you've got to scroll down. No, nothing going on Instagram at the moment. Stuart Jackson says, when your hose pipe starts to leak, use it as a leaky hose. Didn't talk about leaky hose. I have an old hose pipe which is going to be placed around the garden and then plugged into the water butt. Better than putting it in the bin. That's good recycling. I would also say you could use, if you have a leaking hose, you can cut out the leak and use something like that to reconnect it so it doesn't leak. But leaky hoses, I used to, on my old allotment, I actually set up a similar system. It was SEPA hoses, leaky hoses would have been better. I had my old allotment, going back to over 10 years ago now, believe it or not. My old allotment was on a hill. So at the very top of the allotment, I put my water butt, and it was 220 litre water butt, fairly standard one. And had the tap onto it, which had a push fit valve. I still can't see Digwell's comment about this push fit valve. Something going on there. You could always send it to me another way if it's not working through YouTube. But yeah, you had this, and I snaked a load. I've still got them actually. A load of SEPA hoses down it was a terraced terraced plot there. I worked all these SEPA hoses all the way down to the very bottom. Then I had this little battery powered timer to go on for, I think I worked it out for about an hour every day. And again, my allotment was in Brighton, so it's about an hour's travel to get there, so I couldn't get there daily. And that worked pretty well. It was a very dry site, that one. There was a lot of chalk, sandy soil, so keeping it moist was a real problem. But this SEPA hose did actually work quite well. Again, using gravity, so there was, apart from the battery powered timer, there was no electrics needed. There was no anything like that worked. Just seen, he says it's not on Instagram either. I can't see it on Instagram. Oh, Instagram might have a bit of a delay. You could try Facebook. It might work on Facebook. I don't know what's going on, Digger. I'm sorry. Yes, got it. I've got it. So he says, if the water butt has a well-sealed tap that protrudes from the butt, then cut it off as close to the valve as possible. Buy a faithful plastic universal tap hose connector from Amazon, then any push fit valve can be fitted. Why wouldn't that come through? Why wouldn't that come through? Who's trying to block it? God knows. Right, going on from that, Turbo Stream says, one reason I don't want a greenhouse in all the watering I would have to do. A plot holder told me his polytunnel reached 50 degrees C. It's true, you do need to pay a bit more attention if you have a greenhouse, but to be honest, My greenhouse at home doesn't need daily watering, but we'll see. We'll see. Digma says maybe, but no, it's worked. I have no idea. I have no idea why that comment hasn't came through. Right. On that note, I think anybody got anything to add to the to this discussion? What I'm going to start doing. So, of course, last week, as you know, I went to Gardener's World Live. Great 2 days there. Really, really good show. Really enjoyed myself. I'd spent 2 days there. I feel the show is just getting too big to do it in one day. I do feel you need 2 days there. Um, Lots more vegetables gardening. I don't know if anybody else went there, then let us know. Digwell says wicking systems. Wicking system, quickly. Talk about watering. Yeah, wicking systems are kind of what I've got in the greenhouse, which is what I was hinting at, like the veggie pod, where well of water in the bottom and the water just wicks up. Another thing you can do, pots, if you get, say, a towel, put it in your compost with your or capillary matter, to say, put it in your pots that you're growing plants in and have it coming out into a bowl of water. It will wick water as well into your pots. It's a very good system as well. Pretty simple to do, pretty cheap, and will work in any system. Can work quite well in a greenhouse. Yeah, but Gun as well. Had a great time. I did feel 2 days was enough. Maybe even 3 days to really see it all with good food. Lots of vegetable and gardening going on. I came away, I spent too much money. Apple tree, a vanilla orchid plant, lots of good things that I think are made it really, really good show. Nigel has joined. Money Boots, late arrival, still on the allotment. Lovely to see you, my friend. I hope you are well. What have we got? What have we got? Tomatoes. Have I read that? Tomatoes and chilies are dead at 40 degrees C, which is certainly true. In a greenhouse, it can get very, very hot. We've got to remember, if the thermostat or the thermometer that he's reading it as higher up, it could be 50 degrees C up there, but lower down is cooler. That could possibly be what's happening. Turbo Stream says, I need to buy the tap. So long arms or get somebody to help you, or long spanners. Not the normal tap my way, a hose pipe. Excuse me, push fit one, says Digger to Turbo Stream, talking about this tap he needs. What have we got? What Stuart Jackson says, I will be going to Birmingham next year as it looks like a great show. It sounded great on the podcast. I really enjoyed it. I really did. I wish I could spend more time there. I really do. Really good today. Not so nice to see so many friends as well. It's a shame I couldn't see any of you. There is talk of going to the autumn fair at Audley End House in end of August, September. If anybody is interested in going, we might arrange a meetup. Digger says, I watch Gunners World live on YouTube. Nice to see so many channels with different opinions about the show. I haven't seen any YouTube channels, to be honest, to watch them this week. I've been so busy. I did make a video, but I'm not putting it out. I didn't like it in the end. But I think the podcast covered it much, much better. But yeah, you did set me a challenge to go there and find a bargain. And I did find some bargains. The first item I have seen on this mission is the first bargain, 2 for 17 or 1 for 10. Let's have a look what we could get. Snips, pruners. I think that is an absolute bargain. So that was one of the bargains I thought would fit this challenge. What I felt with that challenge, you said about security, couldn't find anything for allotment security. I was quite disappointed with that. But these are, I did get 2 of the Fiskars pruners, got a pair of those and a pair of those. I don't know why. They were a bargain, so I brought them. but thoroughly enjoyed it. And whether that's mission completed, let me know. Hargrave Gas says, I made the last minute decision to go to the show as I was in the area. Never been before. Was amazed how much stuff was there. Spent too much on food and drink, cooking products. Yeah, inside the halls, the good food show was definitely much bigger, taking over. I tried to spend little. I didn't even get in the good food show, to be honest with you. I was outside by most of it, which is difficult when it was raining. But I did pop in, of course. The floral marquee I spent a lot of time as well. Money Mix says Gardeners Wide Live poor to what it was in the early days. Four halls covered completely with gardening items, much smaller now. I felt outside, in my opinion, was bigger though. Much more going on outside, which as a gardening show, I thought kind of makes sense. So I liked it. I liked it. Anyway, my opinion. And it was Digwell says, funny really, one channel liked the gardens, one thought they were boring. The trouble I have with the gardens that they have there, I thought there was many different ideas. Many were very, they're show gardens. They're not really, there was a couple that you might have in your own garden, but they're not really what you would have in your own garden. There were show gardens, but there were some that I really liked. There were some that weren't really for me. The trouble is because they are so popular, and it's very difficult to really get in there and take a look. I had to, when I was taking my photos, I put up so much editing to take things out that people were in the way to try and really show you what was going on. Um, really, that's the trouble with the show gardens. Too many people want to look at them. Couldn't actually walk in any of the show gardens this year either, which is a bit disappointing. But yeah, I liked them. I liked them anyway. Tomo Stream says everyone likes a bargain. There's lots of bargains more than that. I got an apple tree. Actually, 1-year-old apple tree, Peter's Gold, it's called. It was discovered by the late Peter Seabrook, this variety. £15, which I thought for an apple tree isn't too bad a price. It's only in its first year, and I want to make an espalier sort of fence running down by my shed and alongside the path we're using it. So I thought for £15, I'm happy to have that going along there. I've just checked on the Instagram. Anything going on? Oh yeah. Jenny says she loves Gardeners World Live. Haley's Lottie Haven has joined, and Rama has joined as well. Lovely to see you both. £15 for an apple tree. I thought I can prune it the way I want without worrying that I'm going to chop a load off or waste a load of money. Turbo Stream says BBC Good Food incorporating Gardeners World Live next year. I would still say Gardeners World Live was bigger, but more of it was outside, which I think is a good thing. What the food show knocks spots off the gardening show, in my honest opinion. I couldn't get into the good food show. Well, I could have. I just ran out of time to get into good food. The good food show is very, very good. As I said, every year I've been in the past, been to their tasting and things like that going on. Very, very busy, much busier than the Gardeners World inside the halls, I thought as well. Hargrave Guest said, chatted to Lucy and Sue in the floral marquee. Rain too heavy on Thursday to spend too much time outside. There was a downside of everything being outside. It did rain. A friend of mine was on a stage, running the stage outside Age Cellars. And I kept trying to go out to watch some of the talks and stuff, but it rained every time. And it was so annoying. And he had no covering over his stage. So literally, if it rained, you were getting wet. And people were still sitting out and listening to the talks, even though they were getting soaked as well. Already advertised. If you start with the Good Food website, talking to Turbo Stream there, Good Food Show has been featuring gardening show for a few years now. I said there is. I think outside there is definitely a lot of that going. A lot more gardening outside, I'd say. Turbo Stream says I will probably give Malvern Autumn a go this year. I was hoping to go. I can't remember when it is now. It's coming up soon, isn't it? Hannah Jones says, enjoyed Richard's chat with Lucy and Saul in his podcast. Thank you. Yeah, I always have good chats with Lucy and Saul. I absolutely got a lot of time. Lucy and we both bought a vanilla orchid, I think I've already mentioned. What we're going to do, take cuttings of each other's orchid to share with each other so that we can try and grow 2 orchids. I think that vanilla orchid cost me £30, so it's not cheap. But if we get vanilla out of it, I'll be very, very happy. I'll be moving studios at some point, so you will see the vanilla orchid growing when I rearrange the studio. Rebecca says I was very lucky this year. Went on the Sunday and not a drop of rain. Yeah, you were very lucky with that. I would have loved. I mean, it's the first year I've ever known it to rain, but it happens, isn't it? We can't compensate for that. We need bigger halls on the inside. Nigel says, I've missed about 3 or 4 in total of Gardeners World Live since it started. The Good Food Show crept in where gaps started to appear. It's now dominating show in the hall. I agree. Yeah, it is definitely dominating the show in the halls. But I think that's because gardening lends itself to being outside. So take what you can. The thing of spring and autumn fair are all outside. There's no halls. I feel that works better for gardening, in my opinion. Nigel says Malvern Autumn Show 27th to the 29th of September. I don't think I'm on call, so I might be able to get to that one. September is going to be very, very busy with shows and things like that at this rate. Debbie Storm says, I'm saving the podcast till next week for my long drive to Scotland, so I am a couple of weeks behind on the podcasts. I think you enjoy it. I certainly hope you will as well. Jenny Wren says, when it rained, I went out and that's all I can see at the moment. There's obviously something else to add to that. Probably went out to look at the gardens. Probably the best time to go and look at the gardens. Now, talking of looking at gardens, TurboStream has sent us a video of his plot. So should we have a look at that?
Well, this is my plot tour for June 2024. So I'll start off where I normally start, in the bottom corner. So we've got a grow tunnel here. I've got a few onions in there. I've got some cabbages growing, hopefully. And I think I've sowed some beetroot in there as well. And as we come along the row, this is my sweet corn. This was sown direct. That's doing okay actually. That's from the supporters club pack. 100% germination of that lot actually. That's quite pleased with that. And then as we come across, the peas aren't doing very well, to be fair. So I may resow them, I may not bother. I'm not sure. I'm not a huge lover of peas. And then to the left here, I've got just germinating now is a row of dwarf French beans. And then behind that, we've got some French beans. We've also got some runner beans. Runner beans are doing better than the French beans. Got some feathers here. It looks like the fox has had something. I need to weed this. It's got some of these aquilegias growing, so they need to come up. This is the dwarf broad beans. They're just coming into flower, so I'm sure I'll get some beans in the next month or so. And to the right is my onion bed. These are grown from sets. I've got a few onions actually. There's a few gone to seed. I've got a few bulbs coming, so hopefully I'll get some bulbs this year without them going to seed. This is the next bed up, so I've not really cultivated this section before. This was all flowers before. So we've got a courgette there that survived the cold. So I can see there's a couple of small courgettes which I'll have in the next couple of days. And behind that we've got some parsnips. Those have grown okay. Those are from saved seed. So I've got 2 and a bit rows. The top row didn't germinate very well. And then just under this cage I've got another row of parsnips which I sowed from the supporters club. They're starting to germinate, so I'm pleased with that. So that's kind of a, well, it's successional sowing, isn't it? So after that will come in the winter. And then behind there I've got 3 rows of potatoes. I think they're second earlies. I think they're just starting to get a bit of blight, perhaps. I'm going to see the yellowing leaves. I'm assuming under there is first signs of blight, so hopefully this weather we're going to get, if they're correct, will hopefully stop that in its tracks. And on the other half of that border is my wildlife area. So as you can see, I've got oxide daisies, I've got blue hardy geraniums, and my lupins are just going over. This is festooned with flying bees and all sorts. Quite pleased with this actually, although it's going to be bigger than I thought. It's going to be over the top, so at some point I'm going to have to cut that back, I think. But on a sunny day like today, I'm actually a lovely spectacle. Let's go and look at the soft fruit. This is a bit of a disaster. This is the strawberry area. It's basically festooned with weeds, so I need to get on with that. But that is really the plot tour. Lovely day we've got there, look. And this is the plot from the back corner. So this is the rhubarb patch. I thought that was going to keel over actually at one point earlier on in the year. I took some harvest and it seemed to die off, so I tied it up and it's bounced back. And then I've got some red gooseberries. They've got a few fruits on them. There we go there, look. Hopefully they'll ripen up. And then down to the right to that I've got some blackberries. Blackcurrants I should say. Got a few there. I had a good harvest off that. And then as we go across, we've got some red currants coming. I think this year I might have to invest in a proper fruit cage. My Heath Robinson netting isn't that robust. I think when the foxes come through they like to pull the netting out. But all these red currants were from cuttings, so I'm pleased that they've come on. I've gained another compost bin. The brown one is for storage, which I'll probably use for compost. And I've also gained a water butt, so I need to find out somewhere to put that. So that's just this is the messy corner. And the one job I've been doing this last few weeks is to rejig my water butt situation. I've put some slabs under the water butts because the ground was going very soft and they were sinking. So I drained one water butt, put some slabs down, and then put the water from that water butt into the other one, and then did the same with this one here. So I've just got to find somewhere, because I've got 2 water butts and that blue barrel, so I really need to find a home for the 4th water butt. And then finally, this is the gooseberry bush, which is absolutely laden with fruit. A really good cropping this year. Still, I've got to pick them all yet. But they're absolutely laden with gooseberries. Really pleased with that. So yeah, that's my plot tour for June 2024.
Indeed, that is Turbo's plot. Let me give my words out. It's Turbo's plot tour for June 2024. Looking great, I've got to say. So much growth is going on. It's really, really good to see. I'd like to see more of your plots, of course. More plot tours like that are always welcome. One thing I was reminded that I thought to mention actually is that I know Turbo has said in the past he's had a lot of trouble with his butternut squash this year. And a few weeks ago we did sow some butternut squash as a sow along. They started to come up, and then overnight they disappeared. I think slugs and snails have been eating them, and I'm wondering if that's the same for you, Turbo. We've got one that is starting to come up at the moment, which I'm keeping a very close eye, and hopefully that's gonna get some. Right, where do we go? Where were we? Oh, where we go? Right, Nigel says far less companies selling garden sundries at the shows now. I think that's a good thing, and let me explain why. If we want to buy gardening sundries, we could go to a shop. We could go to a market or something like that to buy gardening sundries, something that we don't have to pay money to get in. We go to a gardening show because it's a gardening show. We're not there to be sold stuff. This is a pet gripe of mine. There's one particular chain of shows that I will refuse to go to and will not do a podcast for, because I've been to the shows and they are pretty much, you pay to get in and everything is about selling stuff to you. There's no show gardens, there's no talks. It's all about selling stuff to you. So I don't refuse to go to that. Yes, we want some products that you excuse me, may never see. That's great. But I want to see more show gardens and more talks when I go to shows. That's my stance. Digwell says, I could swear some of the displays in the marquee were the same as 2023, 2022 bonsai orchids. It was the first year they had the National Orchid Society. The orchids was a big thing here for this year. But was it 2022 they had the Archer's Garden, which was awesome. But yeah, I know what you mean. Some of the stall displays, the nursery displays could do with a bit of a refresh. Idaho Garden Girl has joined. Hello. Oh, sorry, I'm late. Not a problem. And Rob's Allotment Garden. Good evening from a cold Cornwall. Still on holiday for another week. Kate says, lovely plot. Has had much more luck with me than onions and not managed them yet. Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah, my onions are looking pretty good. But my overwintered onions, that is, my spring, the other onions, not so good. What have we got? Anne says, gorgeous flowers. Idaho says, wow, look at all those flowers. I love blue flowers. Digwell says, Dennis Moore likes lupins. Something to do with Monty Python. Dennis Moore riding through the Glen. And Turbo riding through the Glen next week in Scotland. So somebody's going to have to explain that Monty Python joke to me. I tried watching Monty Python. I couldn't get into it. But I don't watch much TV, so is there a joke going on there? Idaho says, have fun on your vacation, Turbo. Great plot, says Anna Jones. Indeed. Turbo Stream says, only one squash came up, brought a new pack, and none have germinated. They didn't germinate at all. Interesting. Turbo Stream says, the red onions were sets from Poundland. Interesting. And gardening 22 degrees C here, should have stayed at home, bloody tourists. Indeed, it hasn't been warm enough, has it? We do need a little bit of warmth. Just realised I haven't uploaded the photos, so I'm just going to quickly get the photos uploading right now. That's the one. So Moneyboot says Hall's watering can. Felco's second test. I did see Felco. Nawaki, Hori knife. Hori knife. Not many of these on sale in garden centres. Oh, in garden centres. With you. Halls are usually in garden centres, but I'm with you. I do agree they're not usually in garden centres. But then you don't really see things like quick hose in garden centres either these days, do you? So it's a difficult one. I just think there's a balance between having too many stalls and not enough gardening stuff. That makes a difference. As I said, the one chain of garden shows that I know of, I refuse to do anything for, because I just couldn't. In all good conscience, they're not an expensive show to go to, but it is just purely selling stuff. Digwell says 28 degrees C at Tuesday, Wednesday. Woohoo. And he goes on to say, did you film any show gardens at Gardener's World Live? I took photos and they are up on my Instagram, Facebook, etc., etc. I didn't film. It's just too busy to get in there to film anything. Too many people around. What I wanted to do was go to press day, which is a Wednesday, so I could do all this filming with nobody around. Unfortunately, I was on call, so I couldn't go. I'm hoping next year to go on press event to actually film stuff when nobody is around. I used to be allowed to get in a little bit early in the mornings, but now I've started doing tours early in the morning, I couldn't do that either. It's a little bit annoying. Hi, Grave Guest. Got some bargains hose fittings from the Draper stand. I did see the Draper stand as well. Actually, they were selling some bargains there, weren't they? Turbo Stream says, looking at my plot, it looks quite bare still. Everyone does. Everyone's plot still, I think, looks a little bare. It's been a late year. Hopefully they will grow with this warm weather. Indeed. Let's just check on Instagram. Jamie in Love 78 joined, and I Want a Peach Tree joined. Fantastic. Nigel says, what is the show you will not go to? It's a chain. I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head, but they're local to me. They do in several sort of stately home gardens, shall we say. They're not that expensive to get into, but I can't think what they're called. I still think it's a rip-off, and for me to say that says something. But they are down on the south coast. Turbo Stu says, my main aim this year was to keep it tidy as I'd lost my mojo earlier on. It looks like you got it back though. You're doing really good. I like it. I like it a lot. Right. We have got some photos. That's what I was going to bring up before we start getting ready for it. Margaret says, why is my red currant not flowering, Rich? Just quickly. So, has it not put any flowers at all? It should be fruiting by now. What I've noticed a lot with the currant bushes this year is the leaves are looking yellow, and I'm wondering if the rain over winter has washed a lot of magnesium out the soil, so it may need some salts or a bit of nitrogen in the soil to improve it. You could try using a tomato feed, and that might encourage it to flower. Have you pruned it as well? Because red currants prune on second year growth, if I remember correctly. Or have you pruned it? That would be another question to ask you. Let's have a look at your photos quickly, because there's some good photos came in over the last 2 weeks. So Philly is getting some help from the Shipyard Gardener. I haven't seen much from the Shipyard Gardener lately. Hope he is doing well, but he is looking very, very happy with his hands in the soil, helping young Philly. Kate has got garden envy after attending a garden open day. These garden open days are always worth looking into. They do more and more every year, and I like them. I like them a lot. Digwell says it is a Stonehenge, and after what has happened the other day, should he use apricot jam to cover them in orange paint? I'm saying nothing on that because I think that was a stupid thing to do, in my honest answer. Stonehenge, however, makes me hungry for scone. I'm on a diet, so I can't eat these things. Nathan has got his first globe artichoke, something he has waited for years to be able to produce. If you can find a way of making some good globe artichoke dishes, I'm all ears, because I really struggle to make them edible. Steve is on Blight Watch. He's getting a few reports. I can't remember what website he uses, but he's getting a few reports of blight in his area or near his area. So it's well worth keeping your eyes out for blight. It is about the time we start seeing signs of it, isn't it? Kate has got some huge spinach, and she's turning it into a Greek dish. It's a type of spinach pie with feta and phyllo pastry. I'm not going to try and pronounce it because it's some difficult Greek word. Spanakopita, I think it was. Scott thinks his celery has bolted, and we tend to agree. I think it's been such a dry or wet time that it's probably affected the celeriac, and then all of a sudden we've got some wet moisture. Sorry, some hot sun that's probably caused it to bolt. Andy has had a load of arrive, and he was asking what to do with it. Just let it rot down, and it'll be perfectly good in your compost heaps. Kitty Kate has raised £160 at a plant sale for her garden club. Fantastic work, gotta say. Good, just goes to show there is some money in plants. Debbie has had a bad year with flooding on her allotment, but her Sweet Williams has lifted her mood. Gotta say, they look beautiful, don't they? Scott has also suffered rust on his garlic, something that I think we've all suffered with. My garlic is up now and enjoying it, but it definitely suffered from rust. It's definitely not been a good year for garlic. Now, Stuart has got plenty of gooseberries in the freezer. Fantastic indeed. Do like a good gooseberry. They are absolutely delicious. Now, Nick, the potted trees are looking great on her farm, or 3 acres of land, homestead, I guess you could call it. Lots of trees, all of which are taking a lot of work, but are looking fantastic. Now, Beddoes, more importantly, he's managed his first peas, and the grandkids haven't beaten him to it. So good work going on there, indeed, Beddoes. So please do keep sharing your photos. We really do love to see them. Post them in our Facebook group. You can send to me via social media, or was it DM? Slide into my DMs, the kids say, isn't it? Or you can email me, richard@veggrowpodcast.co.uk. richard@veggrowpodcast.co.uk. So Margaret says in regards to that currants, the plant is looking healthy and is growing well, but no flowers. I haven't pruned. That might be where you're going wrong then. I think I'm trying to remember if it's red currants or black currants. After about 3 years, they lose their vigor. So they really need pruning. Anything over 3 years, any branches over 3 years old need pruning out. So that might be why. And that will encourage fresh growth. That should encourage flowering for the next few years. From memory, that is, but I'm pretty sure that is what's happened now. Rob says, I've got to go. We'll catch you next Sunday. Lovely to see you, Rob. Always happy, always pleasure. Idaho says, that looks like a castle. It's a stately home. I'm not sure which stately home. I'm assuming it's a stately home. It could just be a manor house. But yeah, it does look like a castle. Castles are much bigger, though, with a lot more rooms. Or most of them are, usually anyway. Turbo Extreme likes the Stonehenge. Idaho also says, way to go, Chili Kate. Excellent, with the photo of the £160 raised. Kate says the spanakopita, I can never pronounce it, turned out lovely. And Idaho says, I love spanakopita. It's delicious, isn't it? Absolutely delicious. We had it a couple of weeks ago. It was really, really nice. Idaho says, well, Nicola. And Anna says, gooseberry crumble, Stuart. Good idea, good idea. Got to use those gooseberries. Kate says, well done, Chili Kate. And Stuart says, when did you get down with the kids, Richard? I'm trying these days. I'm trying to get down with the kids. Digler says, all old growth on black currants should be gone in 3 years of pruning. It was red currant, which I can't remember if it's black, red, or white currants that follow a slightly different rule with pruning. But yeah, it's you want to get rid of the old growth, basically. I'm pretty sure that's what's gone on. Easier to say spinach pie. Spinach pie. That's much easier. Yeah. Kate says that wasn't a stately home. It was one of the houses in the next village. Oh, it was a house. a large house, we'll put it like that. The whole village opened their gardens and they were incredible. I need to up my garden game. You know what? This is some of the things I was touching on Gardeners World Live and looking at the show gardens and things like that. I come away and I want to rip my entire garden up again and start again and create something like we see at these show gardens. But then I never know where to start. And I've always done it bit by bit. And now I look at it, I think, I can do better. I can do better. I can make it look so much better. I've just got to find a way of getting what I've seen and put it into paper, down on paper, or down in the garden. Stuart says, just been out watering and listening. Garden done for today. Good work. Good work. Well, we are sliding into the last 8 minutes of the show. We need a few ideas of what we can talk about next week. Now, for the sow along, I'm going to sow some spinach, something I haven't sown yet this year, something I'm quite partial of and featured quite a bit in those pictures. But I need a mission, a challenge that you can set me for this next week, and a subject to talk about next week. I just saw some very interesting comments come up as well. Spanakopita, it's all Greek to me, and you are pronouncing it correctly, Richard. Thank you. Thank you. It's all Greek to me as well. It's delicious, though, isn't it? That's all that I care about. Digwell says, I might have to open Digwell Towers to the minions. Absolutely. I've wanted to do it with my garden as well. I think especially if it's an edible garden, people might be inspired to come along and have a look. Kate says, I like to go to these open gardens to see what grows well in these areas. I now have a very long shopping list. It's a good idea. It really, really is a good idea. The National Garden Scheme usually does a garden open days as well, doesn't it? Nigel says, very rarely see costs involved to produce the show gardens. I have to agree with that. A lot of the stuff can sometimes be donated. A lot of the stuff can be it can be promotional as well. A friend of mine did a garden, I'm trying to think, about 2 years ago now, and it cost her 60 grand to produce that show garden for 5 days. The only thing that she was meant to have a builder come in to lay the path down, doing the concrete and everything, who didn't turn up, and she ended up trying to do it herself until some people gave her a hand. But yeah, 60 grand on a show garden that it wasn't the smallest, it was like the second to large just ones, the ones that down the far side, shall we say. So gives you an idea. You're definitely looking a lot for a show garden, a lot of money involved. Yellow Book open gardens are great for ideas. Yeah. Oh, Richard Golden says like. Yes, thank you so much, Richard, for reminding me. Please do give us a like. Please do give us a thumbs up. Please do give us a follow, a subscribe, and click the notifications so you know when we go live. Digwell says a bit late for spinach. It might bolt very quickly. That's what we're going to try and see what happens. But if we shade it out and put it in one of our shadier corners, it might do okay. Toby Extreme says, I might open my garden for a weed-in party. Good idea, indeed. Idaho says, sounds like you get some good inspiration at the open gardens. I do. I certainly do anyway. I think most of us do as well. I always love having a nose. I even get inspiration driving around and looking at allotments when I pass them. Digwell says, do you mean to copy a show garden? Yeah, a lot of money involved. And says, favourite summer recipes from the garden. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. It's something we can certainly do. That's what I need. Good idea. And, oh, yeah, I think we're going to do summer recipes then. That answers that. Summer recipes is the subject. And all I need now is a challenge, a mission to do over this next week. What have we got? Monuments. Yes, those at Chelsea require huge mortgages, don't they? Just. I mean, the thing is, the show gardens to show what you could do. but they're not practical, I don't think, in many ways. Some of them can be, but some are a little bit crap. Hi, says hello to Adrian. Stuart says Supporters Club rhubarb seeds have done amazing. I think I have about 15 plants. So if you're not a Supporters Club member, it's well worth money. Plus, I sell the excess for charity. Indeed, I always like growing rhubarb from seed because I do think you only need 1 or 2 plants yourself. The extras you can grow and sell on, and I find they sow really, really easily. Digwell says, still no butternut squash germination for me. I was mentioned this earlier. I don't know if you heard. 2 different suppliers now. What I noticed, my butternut squash was very, very slow to germinate. It came up, and then the next day it had been eaten. I assume it had been eaten, slugs or snails or something. So they are germinating, but there's something eating them afterwards. So it is annoying. Granted, it is very, very annoying. Turbo Stream says he won't be here next week because he's chasing the summer haggis in the looping glens next week. Same here, Digwell. Glad it's just not me talking about the butternut squash. And Stuart says, I've done a Shogun for under £200. I think that is what they should have to do. Extra points for spending less. The trouble is the rules and how you get points. So again, a friend of mine did a Shogun last year, and because she didn't get the plants from the nursery that they said, she lost points. So it's very difficult. But if you do a Shogun, are you doing it to win the prizes or win the points or win the competition, or are you doing it because you want to be you want to create a show garden? Good on you. Good question there. Good question. No germination seeds still in the compost. Something going on with butternut squash then, isn't there? Interesting. I've noticed a lot of squash. I was at a car boot thinking I might find, because I've lost pumpkins and butternut squash and courgettes. I've lost so many to slugs and snails. I was looking for pumpkins and things like that. And even the car boots didn't seem to be selling many. So there's something going on. Nigel also says, poor germination with spring onions for me. Tried 4 varieties. I think this year has been a very, very challenging year. Very challenging. Graham says, I have a nice recipe for rhubarb creme brulee for next week. Please do send your recipes in. You can send it to text, email, or even videos or photos would be great as well. So I would love to get those ideas in. My butternut squash is in the veggie pod at the moment, so hopefully it will survive. Fingers crossed for you, buddy. Digwell says, remember to hunt haggis. You need to chase them clockwise around the hills because their left side legs are shorter and they roll down the hill when you startle them. There you go. There you go. Did not know that. Turbo Stream says, I went around a few garden centres looking for butternut squish seedlings and none to be found. It is a tough year, even with pumpkins and things like that. Do you want to make that the challenge to find somewhere selling butternut squash seedlings? Would that be a challenge? Would that be a challenge for next week? Up to you, of course. Chili Cake says, I have very little germination on all my squashes, so I potted up the ones that came through and put the others to one side. They've now come up, but I removed the labels, so don't know what's what. It happens, doesn't it? It does happen. I'm talking about labels on the podcast tomorrow, funny enough, because that's a big thing for me. And you've just added something I might bring into mention as well on that front. How long have we got? We are literally at, it's 7:30. Literally, as I said, that is 7:30. It's time to wrap this one up. Thanks so much for joining me. Apologies once again for not going live last week, but I think we worked quite well. I'm going to do the butternut squash as the mission for next week, if you are okay with that. I've got a few ideas on what we can do with that, but if you're happy with that, we're going to go searching for butternut squash. Have a quick check on Instagram before I sign off. Jenny Red says, I love that Gardeners World Live designers, growers talk and share experiences with you. Jamie's Little Allotment says, hey, love Spadacapita. Richard, have you got an insect hotel on the plot in the garden? Challenge idea. I do, but I do need to make more. Remind me next week, so that'll be a good mission. Good mission. Malabar spinach and butternut squash seeds, none there either. Everyone else, that was Roxy, sorry. Everyone else is starting to say goodbye. Right, thanks so much, guys. This has been great chat. I'm gonna do the insect hotel as well. I'm gonna do 2 challenges next week because I make up for last week. Right, guys. I will see you all again next Sunday at 6, unless anything gets in the way, which is very, very rare. You take care. Please do send in your photos, your videos, ready for next week. And more importantly, enjoy your garden. Thanks so much, guys. Till next time, please take care.